Hello, and welcome to Connecting with Kathleen. We're a show that highlights local behavioral health nonprofit agencies, bringing you the information of services that are available to you. And today we have Katherine Sand, Director of Family Connections. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So let's start by talking about what is Family Connections, when was it founded, where did the idea of it come from?
Absolutely. Well, amazingly to me anyway, it's been around for almost 9 years. I think this is our 9th year of being alive. And we were formed in a really interesting way, which is that a bunch of human services agencies and many of the people that you know in this community came together and said, families here need support, but they don't know where to get it. And so what they decided to do was set up a family resource center as a kind of hub, a one-stop shop is the idea, a place where you can go and get whatever you need, whoever you are. So it's not just people who've got huge monumental problems. You might have just a quick question. Okay. You know, how do I find a summer camp for my kid or a math tutor? But often, you know, as you know, many of the families we work with have sort of bigger, more complex challenges, and we help them navigate. So we came together because Pitkin County thought it was a good idea, gave us some startup funding, said go out into the world and see if you can make it happen, and that was 9 years ago, and we are doing it. We're based in the school district, and there's a reason for that. First of all, the school district gave us space. So,
nice.
Right. So that was definitely an important thing to have. But also, it's a hub for kids. I mean, obviously, because we're in the school district, most of the children in this county will pass through our school district. Right. Not everybody, but it's just a great central place to be.
Wonderful. What's the mission? It's connecting. Do you do any hands-on services or?
Well, so we don't actually provide services.
Okay.
We make referrals. We connect people to funding. We do a lot of, whenever we meet a family, I can tell you a tiny bit about the process. Yeah. We do a little bit of intake, and it's very gentle. It's more like a conversation, not an interrogation. And they can tell us what they want to tell us. Everything we do is free, and everything we do is voluntary. So we're not forcing people to come in. Okay. We just say, look, how can we help? And I think quite an important part of what we do is just that warm handoff, that we're peers, we're very compassionate, though I say so, you know, it is important. We're not bureaucratic. Really, we're just parents and family members and community members and professionally trained and focused on how to help people through, you know, whatever it is they're dealing with. But we sit down with people and just say, okay, let's help navigate this, because you know how it goes. When you have stuff going on in your life, you're overwhelmed.
Correct.
So where do you begin? So what we help is try to untangle that sort of ball of wool, if you like, and to try and tease things out, help people prioritize, help people establish a goal for themselves. We're not going to sort everyone's problems out, and we do not have, you know, that fantastic magic wand that we all wish existed,
yeah.
right? So, but it is, that's what we do, and we try to take the pressure off people and say, okay, you have to meet, for example, you might have to meet with 3 separate agencies to solve your issue, whatever that might be. Okay. Maybe it's mental health, maybe it's the school, maybe it's an agency like Response. We try and bring all those people together, okay, so you're not running around trying to manage your appointments and repeating your story, which is traumatic often and stressful. Right. We bring everyone together and, if you like, really wrap around them and say, how can we help?
So it sounds like there might be some case management going on?
Very much so, yeah. We now the sort of trendy word for it is family development services, okay, because we really pride ourselves in valuing the voice of the family. So if I were to sit down with you or with anyone else, I have zero judgment, first of all, and that's really important. Right. We're not coming in here, we're not prescriptive. We meet, I don't like this phrase, but we meet people where they're at. Like, we're just here to listen and help and not judge you for your choices or your situation, or make you feel bad, because at the end of the day, we're all just human beings. And then we help people navigate, and that can be quite a light process, and sometimes it's more intensive.
I can imagine it's very relieving for the families, because if they're stressed, maybe there's financial things, their children are acting out, they don't know where to go. I bet they don't even know most of the services that you can connect them with.
Right, and they don't. And when you're in that place, or your mind is spinning, right? You're worried about your children. You may have domestic issues. You may have issues with a partner. You may have substance use issues. There's so many things that everyone's dealing with, and we try to take the pressure off and just help people breathe a little bit, and then provide them with some immediate ideas and encouragement. And if they need help filling out a form, or if they need we can make those phone calls. We can move things along in their process. So that's really a big part of what we do.
What are some of the prime issues you're seeing families struggle with today?
Okay, let me give you a list. I think it's first of all, just to say, when you live in Aspen and people think, and I obviously work with people from all over the state who do similar work to me. They're like, oh, well, Aspen, nobody here has any problems.
Right. That's why whenever I fly somewhere, I never say where I'm from.
That's interesting. Well, I do. And what I say is I come from Aspen. And first of all, we have everything that everybody else has. Right. And secondly, we have some stuff that nobody else has, right? Because living here brings its own pressures and its own stresses. Yes. So everything, obviously, mental behavioral health and substance use are a very big part of our story in this community. That's not to say that everybody has those challenges. Right. Obviously, economic hardship. It's one of those places where you can have what looks like a really good job and
can't afford housing.
And you have no food, or your housing is insecure. Right. So that's those sort of very basic things. And we help people navigate that. We help them get referrals to mental health. Kids and school are a lot, in a way, that's almost where things show up. Things show up, and then you find out that the family needs support in a different way. Services often hard to come by here, specialist things, because we're so remote. There's just a lot. Transport, is very difficult. Just getting around, just paying for life, paying for childcare, paying for summer camp, planning summer camp. Right. And then, at the same time, we have some Aspen stuff, right? Which, having had kids here, how it goes. Your children, you live in a modest way and what you think of as a normal way, and yet the kid sitting next to yours in class, right, is going off to Bali in their private jet. And with those inequities comes stress, and it's complex. And so these, that's a range, but you name it, whatever it is that you could think of that a family might deal with, we have it here.
So how do referrals come to you?
They come to us, well, a lot of them come through the schools, because like I say, when something is going on in a home, often it will show up in the behavior of a child. And just to be clear, so as much as we'd like to help the entire community, we were formed to support families with children. Okay. And when I say children, we go to like 21.
Okay, and I was surprised to learn on the webpage that any age child, they don't have to be registered in the school district.
They don't have to be registered in the school. We have some young adults that we support who've actually graduated. We work with people who are pregnant and don't have a baby yet. We work with, families in early childhood. So our referrals come from everywhere, and often from a phone call from a family. They'll just call us, but we get a lot from school. We get them from therapists and clinicians. We get them from service providers. We get them from nonprofits. It's a small community, and people care.
That's true.
And it's amazing.
Yeah, I would imagine how do you handle, like, a teacher refers a student and you have to call the parents? How is it?
Well, first of all, we always try to have a warm handoff. Okay. So we don't really find that cold calling works very well. I don't know about you, but I don't.
No, I just wondered how you handled that.
Well, we ask the family to mention. I don't think we experience a lot of stigma. I don't think people are like, oh, yeah. But sometimes people might take a while, and that's absolutely fine. That's up to them. Nobody has to work with us. And when we reach out, we do in a way that I think is pretty friendly and warm, and we often don't have a ton of information. And we make it as easy as possible for people to chat to us. And we'll be honest as well. If we think that they need something different, then we're going to obviously recommend that to them. So,
Okay. Do you find most families take you up on the recommendations?
yeah,
Okay.
they do. Sometimes follow through is a challenge for people. And I understand that because I'm the world's biggest procrastinator, right? So you could give me a phone number and say, phone this person or do this thing. And I'll be like, ah. So sometimes we support by checking in. We'll help. We'll sort of try and help make the connection easier. But yeah, people follow up, and they're normally, a bit relieved because they just, as you say, it's hard to do on your own.
Right. So if you wouldn't mind, I want the people that are watching to have a more hands-on idea. So I'm a mom, and I come home and I catch my kid smoking marijuana or vaping, and I call you. What would that look like? If you could walk me through.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, we're not going to come around to your house with a siren flashing or anything like that. And I think what we try really hard to do when we speak to parents who are often, frantic because something has happened, their child is behaving in a way they've never seen before, and especially when it's like a little one who was, a youngish child they were always perfect, right? And then suddenly they're experimenting, and that's normal, right? That's developmentally normal that you push back, that you want to independence,
Right.
that things that were comforting, you don't want any, you reject those. So a lot of what we do is when we meet the person, we'll say, come in and chat with us, is normalize their situation, right?
Okay.
First of all, and we can give them that context. And then what we do is pull apart all the sort of things that are going on, what the family needs. We often, for example, support parents with therapy.
Great.
If they want access to a therapist. We talk to them, we try and, often people are very open with us. We'll talk about their substance use issues, their fears, their family history, things that may be going on. I'm using the
Right.
example that you raised.
Right.
We will, if you like, create almost a sort of map of the child's life. Who are they connected to? What are the things they like? Who are their friends? Who are they close to at school? What do they do in their vacations? And what does a family look like? Are the parents together or not together? We really sort of try to paint a picture and then look at what services they're already getting and support. Do they have an IEP or a 504 plan at school?
Could you explain what those are?
Yeah, so an IEP is special education. A 504 is an accommodation plan.
Okay.
And basically those plans, it's not really about disability so much as accepting the specific needs, the exceptional needs, they call it, of the
Right.
student. So the idea is, are they pushing back because they're unhappy in some way? Is it a friend group issue? Do they feel pressure to behave in a certain way? Do they have too much time on their hands? Do they need more activity? We can help them find a job or, get involved in a sport. It's not always sport, but an activity,
Right.
some kind of volunteer work. Just try and create, I guess, engagement and connection for the child.
Right.
And this is important, as much as possible with the child. I was in a meeting this morning with a family whose little boy is, I think he's 5 or 6. He's really small.
Oh.
And I was so impressed with my colleague who took some time to say, let's talk to him, to hear from him. And it was funny because he went off, he went going on and on and on about the things that were important to him. And children have a voice. And young people and children need to articulate. And quite often in our society, and I'm going off at a bit of a tangent here, but
go.
quite often parents want to do things for their kids and say things for their kids. And we find that, it stands to reason, if the child is invested in their own journey,
Right.
it's going to go better.
I 100% believe when I get a phone call from a parent for their child, the parent always wants to come in first. And I said, no, I need to meet your child first because I want their story from them first, so I'm not biased by what you're seeing. And then your child will feel safer.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. They need to be heard. I love it when a 5-year-old gets to talk.
Right, and they need to have agency, right?
Right.
Because I think children often, you know, make poor decisions or behave in a certain way because they don't feel attached to anything. Like, and if you're really saying to them, okay, you know, how do you think that's going for you? Or how do you think this is impacting your family? Or, you know, what do you think you want from your life right now? Then they're more likely to, you know, develop their own point of view and make a better decision.
Right.
And engage with a service, for example.
Right. Because it's very true that we all need attention to survive. And if I'm not getting positive attention or any attention, negative attention will work too.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, you know better than anyone, you know, because of your work, that, you know, I think we all want to feel that we can make a difference in our lives. There's nothing like a feeling of helplessness to, you know, encourage, you know, poorer decisions or just giving up, if you like.
Right. The Surgeon General has listed loneliness as a number one epidemic in our country. And I was thinking about that when I was thinking about interviewing you today with the kids, because what I've noticed in the last several years, that because it's so expensive, that parents having to work 2, maybe 3 jobs, or, you know, having to commute, and they're not getting the time at home. And I think there's a lot of kids. I mean, if you can speak to that, what you're seeing.
Well, I think also, I mean, this is an old chestnut, but it's true that technology makes us lonely. So
Yes.
that young people have an illusion of engagement, an illusion of being in the world because they're being exposed through their phones to so much.
Right.
But at the same time, that's not engagement. Nothing is being asked of them. They're being fed what the algorithm thinks they want,
Right.
or, you know, what they are curious about, but they're not really engaging and attaching. And I think that's the loneliest thing of all, is kids at home on their phones. I just think you can be alone in a room full of people like that.
Right.
And it's sad, it's really sad.
And that opens them up to cyberbullying.
Well, exactly, they're exposed to so many, you know, problematic facets of life, and forced to grow up faster than they might otherwise do.
Right.
And, you know, I don't want to say, I don't want kids to be sort of stupid about the world, but there's something to be said for a little bit of innocence for a while, you know.
I think, we should look at where they are developmentally and what that brain can handle. So
Okay.
speaking about the phones, the district made this great decision, no phones in school.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm
It's
seeing
amazing.
a high school young man, and I was talking to him, well, what do you think? And he goes, I hated it at first. He goes, but we had the best foosball tournament ever, and that would have never happened. And, like, it's not quiet at school anymore.
I know. I love that Sarah Strasberger wrote about that the thing that's changed is the noise.
Yeah.
And that's such a sort of healthy thing. It really, really is. And that's a very mature attitude. It really is.
Yeah.
Because we're all, like, absolutely obsessed with our phones and dependent on our phones.
Yeah.
And so I think it's given kids a bit of peace, actually.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, that was a very brave and progressive decision, honestly, by the high school and by the district. Really,
Yeah,
really
I
cool.
think most of the kids are buying into it and liking that.
I think so. I think if they're honest, that they understand that that's a good thing.
Yeah. So if you have a child come to you and, you know, maybe he's 8, 10 years old, there's no parental supervision at home, maybe he has to make his own dinner, he's starting to act out, what are some strategies or agencies that you might engage him with?
Well, you name it, we have it. So one of the things that I think that we're very, very lucky in this county and in our school district. So, for example, we have incredible school-based mental health. So we have counselors, and really wonderful counselors, who work closely with kids and make a lot of referrals to us. We also have therapists who can deal with those higher tier of issues. We have the Hope Centre provides them to our district. We have one in every school in Aspen, including the community school. So that is, that's just mind-blowing that we have an ability for a child to see a therapist at no cost in the school where they are anyway. So there's no logistics of how to get them somewhere.
Right.
I mean, most places wouldn't even believe that such a thing existed. So that's an incredible thing we have, and actually many schools in our valley have that. Hope Center is a tremendous partner. We also kind of try to do a bit of lateral thinking,
Okay.
and that's where extracurriculars come in, of all kinds, right? You know, the Aspen Youth Center is a really important partner to us, not just for kids to go after school, a place to go that's safe and they can, you know, interact with peers and this programming, but also some of them volunteer there or work there, so they have the first steps to that kind of employment maturity thing. And then, you know, you name it. You think about the programs we have in this valley: art programs, ski programs, you know, volleyball, I mean, dance, you know, you name it, we can find it.
Okay.
And so trying to hook kids into something that, you know, we talk a lot about passion. It's not really even about passion, that's busy, that's social, that helps them build self-respect, a sense of who they are, happiness.
That's important, yeah.
Yeah, so those kind of referrals, I think we sometimes underestimate that, because everyone's very quick to say, well, therapy.
Right.
But, you know, it's just how do you live a whole life, you know?
Right.
And think about all the things that lead into that. We also refer kids to substance use counseling, which is not therapy. It is more about how do you manage the pressure, say, for example, from friends? How do you say no if you want to say no? The social pressure.
When you're an adolescent, you want to fit in, and
everyone does, yeah.
You know, I know when my kids were going through school, and luckily they, as far as I know, weren't using drugs or drinking alcohol at that point, but their viewpoint was that everybody's doing it, Mom. I can't go anywhere because everybody's doing it.
Right, and that perception fuels a reality, because then if you perceive everyone's doing it, then you think, well, I might as well, or I should, or... And I think part of our efforts, and that's a whole other subject of things that we do, we have a very big prevention program focused on substance use prevention, is to give kids permission to say, I'm not ready for that yet. And that's okay. And to understand that their peers feel the same way, that not everybody, because normally the perception of young people about what everybody is doing way exceeds what everyone is really doing.
Yeah, it's important to educate the kids on that. Because they don't want to be left out. They don't want to be the only person who's not doing it.
No, and you said something important, because I think one of the things, particularly as kids get older, but it's at every age, the thing that children value the most is friendship.
Yes.
And the friendship and support and involvement of peers. And so that's where we see a lot of problems coming in.
Right, I imagine helping a child find his people.
Right.
Who does he belong with or she belong with?
Right.
What's that group?
And being okay if there isn't a group, as long as you have one or two friends, you know, not everyone will have a group.
True.
I mean, it's just, you know, we're all designed differently. And so I think unpacking friendship and helping kids and families to understand what, you know, popularity means, right? I think that's very important. That's very important. And parents, you know, there are times when you have to butt out as a parent. Like, you can't get involved. You can't be calling your kids' friends parents and having a go because they're not involving them.
Right.
I mean, young people have to learn to navigate their own relationships.
Absolutely. So navigating relationships makes me think about being bullied.
Yes.
How do you guys navigate that?
Well, you know, that's really complex and it's very individualized. And I am a little bit wary of the word bullying. Okay. That might not be a very fashionable thing to say, but people resort to the idea of bullying. Sometimes kids are just mean, and that's part of how they learn to be who they are. As you get into adulthood, you realize actually very few people are mean. I don't know about, you know, you might not like someone, but most people aren't actively mean.
Kids can be mean.
Kids, and that, I think, like, exploring their power and understand and their influence is part of how you learn, right? It's developmental. Right. Of course, anything that is systemic or that systematic, I should say, or anything that is prolonged or anything that is targeted, that's bullying. And then we bring in resources, you know, and we bring in the schools and we bring in parents and we try and equip everyone involved, right? Wonderful. But mostly kids are just mean, and that's very hard.
Right.
If your child's the one who's is subject to that, but trying to develop their resilience as well.
Exactly. I mean, I've had kids who felt they had a mean kid with them, and talking about, there's a reason this child might be mean, because what's happening at home,
Right.
maybe he's lonely, he doesn't feel powerful, and then, you don't have to let what other people say affect you.
Exactly.
It's a hard thing to teach.
Exactly. It's all about building up yourself
Exactly.
and your resilience. That's a big leap for kids.
It
That
is.
sort of compassion thing of thinking that somebody else might be mean to you because
Right.
something terrible is happening in their lives. But I think it's an important conversation.
It is. I think for both sides, empathy training is very important.
Yes.
Before we close out, I'd love to hear what you're most proud of with Family Connections.
That's a really nice question. It's a nice thing to talk about. I think what I'm most proud of is my team.
Okay.
I work with some wonderful women. I'm very, very proud that we've been able to raise money through grant funding, mainly grant funding.
What's ground funding?
Grant funding.
Oh, grants.
Sorry, that's
Okay,
my accent.
sorry. Yeah.
but through writing grants, that we have built up our team. I'm proud of the work they do every day with families. I see the connections they make, the trust that they've created in different communities, and I just want to weep with happiness, to be honest. That's what I'm most proud of. We can't solve everyone's problems, but if we can ease somebody's day or ease their journey in some way, then I think we've succeeded in the brief. So
That's wonderful.
that's where I feel pride. They'll never say no to a challenge or to a new opportunity.
Because they follow your lead.
Well, I'm
You're
very
a
bad
tireless worker.
no, I don't know about that. I'm very, very bad at saying no. So anyway.
Right. I'd also like to direct people to your website. There's great resources on there. It's just amazing. I went on it for the first time, I hate to admit this, yesterday, and I spent hours. I was so amazed at all the different resources. So I would ask you to check that out. We'll put Katherine's number on the screen for you.
Yeah, please. And anyone can call me or email me at any time.
Okay.
I will always return a call. We always, if we don't pick up, we're going to call you back.
Awesome.
And we believe strongly in being responsive and available to everybody.
Great. Katherine, thank you for being here today.
It's such a pleasure.
All right,
So
and
nice.
Signing off, hoping
Thank
you
you.
all have health, healing, and happiness, and a good day.